The boardroom doors opened, and I walked in, ready to celebrate 15 years of building something extraordinary. My father, Victor Kane, sat at the head of the table where we'd spent countless nights sketching expansion plans on napkins and arguing over which cities needed our hotels next. I'd flown in from Singapore, where I just closed our largest international deal, a $200 million property acquisition that would cement Kane Hospitality as a global force. My assistant had sent 3 emails confirming this emergency board meeting was about succession planning. I assumed we'd finally formalize what everyone already knew. I was next in line. Instead, my father slid a folder across the polished oak surface. I opened it and my hands went cold. The first page named my younger brother Derek as CEO, president, and majority shareholder. My title? Regional consultant. The air left my lungs as I looked up at my father, searching his face for the joke, the test, anything except what I saw there. Resolve. He wouldn't even meet my eyes. "This is effective immediately," my father said, his voice flat and corporate, nothing like the man who'd taught me to read balance sheets when I was 12. Derek sat 3 chairs down, smirking into his phone. He joined the company 4 years ago after failing at 2 startups and needing Dad to bail him out both times. His contribution to Kane Hospitality consisted of showing up late to meetings, taking credit for other people's work, and charming investors at dinners I'd arranged. Now he was CEO. I felt the eyes of every board member on me, some sympathetic, others carefully neutral. My father's attorney, Mr. Brennan, cleared his throat. "Your father has restructured ownership. Derek now holds 51%. Your shares have been diluted to 12% non-voting." I'd built this empire. I'd worked 80-hour weeks while Derek partied through business school. I'd mortgaged my own condo to cover payroll during the 2008 crisis when banks wouldn't lend. And now I was being erased. I didn't explode. I didn't cry. I did what I'd learned in 1,000 negotiations. I stayed silent and watched. My father shifted in his seat, uncomfortable with my lack of reaction. Good. Derek finally looked up from his phone, annoyed that I wasn't giving him the meltdown he wanted. I closed the folder carefully and stood. "When did you decide this?" I asked my father directly. He rubbed his jaw, a tell I knew meant he was hiding something. 6 months ago. The board voted last week. 6 months, while I was in Singapore, Dubai, and London securing deals that would triple our revenue, my father had been quietly dismantling my future. I nodded once, picked up my briefcase, and walked toward the door. "Where are you going?" Derek called after me, his voice dripping with false concern. I paused at the threshold but didn't turn around. To make sure the Singapore deal doesn't fall apart when they find out who's running things now. Then I left before anyone could see my hands shaking. I sat in my car in the parking garage for 20 minutes, staring at the concrete wall. My phone buzzed with texts from colleagues who'd already heard the news. News travels fast when you've just been publicly humiliated. I didn't read them. Instead, I pulled up the company file I kept on my encrypted drive, the one I'd maintained since day one, documenting every deal, every decision, every dollar. I'd started it as a way to track our growth, but now I scrolled through it with different eyes. Contracts I'd negotiated, properties I'd scouted, relationships I'd built with everyone from city planners to hotel chains to private equity firms. My phone rang. It was my father. I let it go to voicemail, then listened. "Sweetheart, please come back. Let's talk about this like adults. Derek's excited to have you on his team. This doesn't change anything between us." I deleted it. It changed everything. That night, I drove to my childhood home, the sprawling estate my father had bought when Kane Hospitality went public 20 years ago. My mother, Diane, opened the door before I could knock. Her face was tight with anger. Not at me, at him. "You knew?" I said. She nodded. "He told me last month. I told him he was making the biggest mistake of his life." We sat in the kitchen, where I'd done homework while my parents argued about expansion strategies, back when they were partners in every sense. "Why Derek?" I asked. My mother poured 2 glasses of wine and slid one across the counter. "Your father's terrified of dying," she said bluntly. "His brother died of a heart attack at 53. Your father just turned 52. He's convinced he's next. And he thinks Derek needs the company more than you do because Derek can't survive without it." I stared at her. So he's punishing me for being competent? She smiled sadly. He's punishing you for being better than him. The next morning, I started documenting everything. Not just deals and contracts, but conversations, emails, board minutes, anything that showed my role in building Kane Hospitality from a regional chain into an international powerhouse. I reached out to Marcus Webb, a corporate attorney who'd helped me navigate a hostile investor situation 3 years earlier. We met at a coffee shop far from the office. Non-voting shares, Marcus said, reviewing the documents I'd brought. That's deliberate. They've locked you out of any decision-making power. But here's what's interesting. Your father transferred assets to Derek before properly compensating you for your contributions. If you can prove your sweat equity claim and show that the dilution was done in bad faith, you might have grounds for a lawsuit. I wasn't ready for litigation. Not yet. What else? I asked. Marcus leaned back. You could walk away and compete. You didn't sign a non-compete clause when you joined because it was your family's company. Legally, you're free to build something new. Compete. The word lodged itself in my brain and wouldn't leave. I spent the weekend running scenarios. I had $3 million in savings, a network that spanned 4 continents, and 15 years of expertise. What I didn't have was my father's name or his investors. On Monday morning, I walked into the office like nothing had changed. Derek had already moved into the corner office, my father's office, and redecorated it with minimalist furniture and abstract art that screamed expensive consultant. He called an all-hands meeting to introduce himself as CEO. I stood in the back and watched him fumble through a speech someone else had clearly written, promising innovation and fresh perspectives. When he opened the floor for questions, I raised my hand. What's your strategy for the Singapore expansion? Derek's smile faltered. We'll have details soon. Right now, we're focused on internal transitions. Translation. He had no idea what I'd been working on. I nodded and said nothing, but around the room I saw people taking notes. They were watching, and they were worried. That afternoon, I scheduled coffee meetings with 5 key employees, people I'd hired, trained, and promoted. I didn't pitch them on leaving. I just asked how they were feeling about the transition. Every single one of them was worried. Derek doesn't know the operations, said Amanda, my former director of acquisitions. He asked me yesterday what EBITDA stands for. By Wednesday, 3 of them had sent me their personal contact information, making it clear they'd follow me if I ever left. I didn't ask them to. I didn't need to. On Thursday, my father finally cornered me in the hallway outside my new office, a windowless room half the size of what I'd had before. You're being childish, he said. I met his eyes. I'm being professional. I'm showing up. I'm doing my job. That's what you taught me. He flinched. Derek needs your support. You're his sister. I smiled without warmth. And I was your daughter. Didn't stop you. 2 weeks after the announcement, I received a call from Vanessa Chen, a private equity partner I'd worked with on the Singapore deal. I heard about the changes, she said carefully. I'm concerned about Kane Hospitality's leadership transition. Your father's reputation is strong, but Derek's is unproven. I chose my words carefully. The company is in capable hands. There was a long pause. But are you in capable hands? Vanessa asked. Because if you ever decide to build something new, my firm would be very interested in discussing investment opportunities. You're the reason we trusted Kane Hospitality in the first place. I thanked her and hung up, my heart pounding. This was the 3rd call like this I'd received in 10 days. Investors weren't following my father's company anymore. They were following me, and they were waiting to see what I'd do next. So was I. That night, I opened a new file on my laptop and titled it Project Ascent. Then I started building my exit strategy. By the end of the month, Derek had made 3 catastrophic decisions. First, he fired Amanda because she questioned his plan to sell off 2 profitable properties to fund a nightclub venture, his passion project that had nothing to do with hospitality. Second, he insulted a legacy client during a dinner I'd spent 2 years cultivating, costing us a $50 million contract renewal. Third, he tried to renegotiate my Singapore deal, demanding better terms from partners who'd already signed. They walked away. When the board called an emergency meeting, my father defended Derek. He's learning. Everyone makes mistakes at the beginning. I sat in my corner chair and said nothing. But one board member, Patricia Holmes, an independent director who'd been with us since the beginning, spoke up. How long do we let him learn while the company bleeds? My father's jaw tightened. As long as it takes. Patricia looked at me. And what does our expert on international expansion think? Everyone turned. I took my time answering. I think we'll know in 6 months whether this transition was visionary or catastrophic. That night, Patricia called me at home. I need you to know that 4 board members approached me today. We're worried. Your father owns 45%. Derek owns 51%. But there's a clause in the corporate bylaws that allows the board to call for a vote of no confidence if the CEO demonstrably harms company value. We're not there yet, but we're getting close. I thanked her and hung up. I didn't tell her about Project Ascent. Not yet. Instead, I called Marcus Webb again. If I leave and start a competing company, what are the legal ramifications? Marcus was quiet for a moment. You'd need to be careful not to poach clients actively under contract or steal proprietary information. But relationships you built, expertise you developed, those belong to you. And if employees choose to follow you of their own accord, that's their right. I took a breath. Start drafting formation documents. I want to be ready to move in 30 days. Marcus paused. You're really doing this? I looked at the photos on my wall. 15 years of ribbon cuttings, groundbreakings, and victories. I already did it once. I can do it again. The next 4 weeks were a masterclass in strategic silence. I showed up to work, completed my assignments as regional consultant, and watched Derek systematically dismantle everything I'd built. He replaced experienced managers with his fraternity friends. He approved a rebrand that cost $2 million and looked like a budget airline logo. He gave an interview to a trade magazine where he called the company's previous strategy old-fashioned and promised to make Kane Hospitality fun and disruptive. Our stock price dropped 11%. Meanwhile, I quietly incorporated Ascent Hospitality Group as a Delaware LLC. I brought in Marcus as general counsel. I reached out to Vanessa Chen and 2 other private equity firms, pitching them on a new kind of luxury hospitality company. One that combined my proven acquisition strategy with sustainable design and local community partnerships. All 3 firms wanted in. By mid-March, I had $50 million in committed capital and a term sheet that valued my new company at $100 million pre-revenue. I hadn't opened a single hotel yet, but investors believed in me more than they believed in my father's legacy. I was careful about recruitment. I didn't approach anyone at Kane Hospitality directly. Instead, I let it be known through my network that Ascent was hiring for key positions. Within a week, Amanda called me. I heard you're building something. I want in. I met her for dinner at a restaurant across town. If you join me, Derek will retaliate. He might sue. It'll get ugly. Amanda smiled. He already fired me, remember? I've got nothing to lose and everything to prove. Just like you. By the end of March, I had 6 core team members. All people who'd left Kane Hospitality on their own or been pushed out by Derek's incompetence. None of them had violated their employment contracts. None of them had stolen information. They'd simply chosen to follow competent leadership. On April 1st, I submitted my resignation to Kane Hospitality via email to HR, my father, and Derek. I kept it short. Effective immediately, I resign from all positions. Thank you for the opportunity. Then I turned off my phone and went to work. My father showed up at my apartment at 11 that night. I almost didn't let him in, but curiosity won. He looked older than I remembered, the lines around his eyes deeper. You're destroying everything we built, he said. I poured myself tea and didn't offer him any. No, Dad, I'm building something new. You destroyed what we built when you handed it to someone who doesn't know what he's doing. He sank onto my couch. Derek's my son. I couldn't leave him with nothing. I stared at him. And what am I? For the first time since this started, my father looked ashamed. You're strong. You'll be fine no matter what. Derek needs me. I set down my cup. You're right. I am strong, and I'll be better than fine. But you didn't need to destroy me to save him. You could have given us both something. Instead, you chose sides, so now I'm choosing mine. He tried to argue, but I opened the door. Good night, Dad. He left without another word. Ascent Hospitality Group launched publicly in May with a press release announcing our $50 million Series A funding and our mission to revolutionize luxury hospitality through sustainable practices and community integration. Within hours, my phone exploded with calls from press, investors, and former clients. Kane Hospitality's stock dropped another 8% that day. Derek issued a furious statement calling me disloyal and accusing me of corporate espionage. I responded through my attorney with a simple statement. I built my career on relationships and expertise that belong to me. Ascent Hospitality will compete fairly in the open market. We look forward to setting new standards in the industry. The business press loved it. One headline read, "The Kane Who Got Away, How Victor Kane's Daughter is Building an Empire Without Him." Another said, "Why Investors Are Betting on the Sister, Not the Son." By June, I'd signed our first acquisition, a boutique hotel in Charleston that Derek had dismissed as too small. We renovated it with local artists and sustainable materials, then filled every room at premium rates within 3 months. The harder I worked on Ascent, the faster Kane Hospitality declined. Derek's nightclub venture failed spectacularly, losing $15 million in 6 months. His fraternity friend managers quit or got fired when they realized running a hotel required actual hospitality experience, and the rebrand he'd spent millions on confused customers so badly that booking rates fell 23% year over year. By August, Kane Hospitality's board called a vote of no confidence. Derek survived by 1 vote, my father's. Patricia Holmes called me the day after. "We tried. I'm sorry, but your father won't let go." I wasn't surprised. "He will," I said, "when he has no choice." That same week, I acquired 2 more properties, one in Savannah, one in Austin, both in markets where Kane Hospitality had been negotiating but couldn't close because Derek had alienated the sellers. I closed both deals in under 30 days and announced plans to open by the end of the year. The press called it a strategic strike. I called it Tuesday. In September, Derek made his biggest mistake yet. He tried to copy Ascent's sustainable model by announcing a green initiative that was pure marketing with no substance. He slapped solar panels on one hotel roof for a photo op and called it revolutionary. Environmental groups immediately called him out for greenwashing. Customers canceled bookings, investors started asking questions, and then an investigative journalist published an exposé showing that Derek had inflated occupancy numbers in quarterly reports to hide declining revenue. The SEC opened an investigation. Kane Hospitality's stock went into free fall, dropping 40% in 2 weeks. My father called me, frantic. "You have to help us, please. The company is dying." I was in the middle of a site visit in Charleston, watching my team transform a historic building into something beautiful. "I tried to help for 15 years, Dad. You handed it to someone else. That's not my problem anymore." He was quiet for a long moment. "I made a mistake." I closed my eyes. "Yes, you did. And now you have to live with it." By October, Kane Hospitality was hemorrhaging cash and facing potential delisting from the stock exchange. The SEC investigation expanded to include questions about whether Derek had misused company funds for personal expenses, specifically that failed nightclub. Board members started resigning. Patricia Holmes called me one last time. "Your father is finally willing to talk about a transition. He wants to bring you back as CEO and demote Derek to advisory role. Will you consider it?" I was standing on the roof deck of our Austin property, watching the sunset over the city. Ascent now had 5 hotels operational, 10 more in development, and a valuation approaching $300 million. We were profitable. We were growing. And we were doing it without cutting corners or betraying people. "No," I said. "Tell my father I appreciate the offer, but I'm not interested in cleaning up someone else's disaster. I'm too busy building something that actually works." Patricia laughed sadly. "I thought you'd say that. For what it's worth, you're doing what he should have done 15 years ago, trusting the person who actually earned it." 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, Kane Hospitality filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. The news broke while I was in a board meeting with Ascent's investors. My phone buzzed with headlines and I silenced it without reading them. After the meeting, Vanessa Chen pulled me aside. "I saw the news about your father's company. Are you okay?" I nodded. "I'm fine. It's sad, but it was inevitable." She studied my face. You're not even tempted to swoop in and buy the assets? I'd thought about it. Kane Hospitality still owned prime properties in major markets, but buying them would mean absorbing my father's debts and Derek's mistakes. No, I said. Ascent is my company. I'm not going to compromise what we've built by trying to rescue what they destroyed. Sometimes you have to let things fall so something better can rise. Vanessa smiled. That's why we invested in you. You know when to fight and when to walk away. I drove home that night thinking about everything I'd lost and everything I'd gained. The math wasn't even close. I'd won. My mother invited me to Thanksgiving dinner at her house. Your father will be there, she warned. And Derek, if you'd rather not come, I understand. I almost said no. But then I thought about what I'd tell my future children about this moment, about how I'd handled betrayal and loss and came out stronger. I wanted to tell them I'd shown up with my head high. So I went. My father looked exhausted, older, smaller. Derek wouldn't meet my eyes. We sat around the table in painful silence until my mother served the turkey and said grace. When she finished, she looked directly at my father. I'm grateful my daughter had the courage to bet on herself when no one else would. My father flinched. Derek started to say something, but I cut him off. I'm grateful too. This year taught me that I don't need anyone's permission to be successful. I just need to trust myself and work hard. Everything else is noise. I took a bite of turkey and smiled. The meal was delicious. The silence was even better. In December, Kane Hospitality's bankruptcy trustee put the company's assets up for auction. 3 private equity firms bid, along with 2 hotel chains. I watched from the sidelines, curious but uninvolved. Then, the day before the auction, Patricia Holmes called. A consortium of former board members is putting together a bid. We want you to lead the acquisition and rebuild Kane Hospitality under new ownership. Your father and Derek would have no role. You'd have full control and majority ownership. Will you at least consider it? I was sitting in Ascent's headquarters, a converted warehouse I'd renovated into a beautiful, sustainable office space. My team was working on expansion plans. We were thriving. What would happen to my father and Derek? I asked. Patricia was blunt. They'd get a small payout based on what's left after creditors. Essentially, they'd lose everything. I thought about my father teaching me to read spreadsheets. I thought about the hours we'd spent building something together before he decided I wasn't enough. No, I said finally. I'm not interested in taking Kane Hospitality, but I'll help you find someone who can run it properly. Just not me. The auction ended with Kane Hospitality being sold to a national hotel chain for $180 million, a fraction of what it had been worth 2 years earlier. My father and Derek walked away with almost nothing after creditors were paid. I heard through my mother that they'd both moved into a modest condo downtown, the sprawling estate sold to cover debts. Derek was working as a consultant for a startup, making a fraction of what he'd earned as CEO. My father was technically retired, but spending most of his time trying to rebuild his reputation. I didn't reach out. I didn't gloat. I just kept building. By the end of the year, Ascent Hospitality Group had 12 properties operational, 15 more in development, and a valuation of $400 million. We'd won awards for sustainable design, we'd been featured in major travel publications, and we'd proven that you could build something extraordinary from scratch if you had the skill, the vision, and the guts to bet on yourself when everyone else counted you out. On New Year's Eve, I stood on the roof of our flagship property in Charleston and toasted my team. To year 1, I said, and to building something they can't take away. In January, my father asked to meet for coffee. I almost said no, but my mother called and asked me to give him a chance. He's not the same man who hurt you, she said. Losing everything changed him. We met at a small cafe near his condo. He looked humbler now, wearing a simple sweater instead of the designer suits he used to favor. I'm not here to ask for a job or money, he started. I just want to apologize. I was wrong. I was terrified of dying, and I thought Derek needed me more than you did. I thought you'd be fine no matter what I did because you're so strong. But that wasn't fair. I didn't just underestimate Derek. I underestimated what my choice would cost you, and I'm sorry. I stirred my coffee, watching the steam rise. Do you know what hurt the most? It wasn't losing the company. It was realizing you never really saw me. You saw what I could do for you, but you didn't see me. My father's eyes filled with tears. I see you now, and I'm so proud of what you've built. You're better than I ever was. That conversation didn't fix everything. Trust isn't rebuilt in one coffee meeting, but it was a start. Over the next few months, my father and I began having dinner once a month. He never asked about a cent's business. He just asked about my life, my plans, my happiness. Slowly, carefully, we started building something new. Not a business partnership, but an actual relationship between father and daughter. Derek, on the other hand, never apologized. I heard from mutual friends that he blamed me for Kane Hospitality's collapse, convinced that if I'd stayed and supported him, everything would have been fine. I didn't waste energy being angry. Some people never learn, and Derek was one of them. By spring, Ascent had grown to 18 properties and was being courted by international investment firms interested in global expansion. I was 37 years old, running a company worth over $500 million, and I'd done it entirely on my own terms. The empire I'd built with my father was gone. The empire I'd built by myself was thriving, and that felt like the truest kind of victory. Last month, I spoke at a business conference about building resilience in the face of setbacks. When the moderator asked about my biggest challenge, I told the truth. My father gave the company I'd built to my brother and pushed me out. I had a choice: fight for what was taken from me or build something better on my own. I chose to build, and I learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying what they took, it's proving you never needed it in the first place. The audience gave me a standing ovation. Afterward, a young woman approached me, eyes bright with determination. "I just got passed over for a promotion I deserved," she said. "They gave it to someone less qualified. What should I do?" I smiled. "Document everything. Build your network. Trust yourself. And when you're ready, build something so good they'll regret losing you." She thanked me and walked away, shoulders back, ready to fight. I watched her go and thought about that boardroom 2 years ago, the folder sliding across the table, the moment my father chose my brother over me. It had felt like the end of everything. It turned out to be the beginning. Ascent Hospitality Group is now valued at $600 million. I built it without my father's name, without my brother's help, without anyone's permission. I built it the same way I built the first empire, with vision, hard work, and the courage to believe I deserved more than scraps. The difference is, this time, no one can take it away. This empire is mine, and that's worth more than anything my father could have given me.